In 2015, I made a presentation at baseball think tank's Palooza 2015 entitled Pitching UCL Injuries and Their Prevention, a Different Perspective. The opening graphic you see here is from a fable, and this is the fable, Story of the Blind Man and the Elephant. The fable is used to illustrate a range of truths and fallacies. Broadly, the parable implies that one's subjective experience can be true, but that such experience is inherently limited by a failure to account for other truths or a totality of the truth. So what I had here was an elephant, which I called UCL pitching injuries elephant, and around the elephant were blind men, blind doctors, blind coaches, blind engineering person, and they were saying inverted arm action, throwing too many sliders, poor pitching mechanics, too much throwing too hard, high pitch counts. What I was trying to do is sum up really the current thinking as to what leads to or is behind UCL injuries. Basically, the Tommy John surgery epidemic, and I went and dug out. I went did some research and had all the headlines. That the end of the pitching world is coming because of UCL problems. And I went through and showed that if you did a search on the internet, I used the search term pitching UCL injury research, and that the first 8 pages were all medical pages, and it wasn't until the ninth page, after 82 search entries, that I found something that had to do with actual research. And then, ASMI. Here's what I consider interesting. What I did was, and again, this was the end of 2015 that I made the presentation. I went back to over the past 4 years, 2012 to 2015, and looked at the occurrence of Tommy John surgery, UCL reconstruction, for major league pitchers. And what was pretty much 99% of the time is that when a UCL injury is to the extent where it needs surgery is diagnosed, almost immediately the person is scheduled and has Tommy John surgery. So I looked at when they had the Tommy John surgery as a function of calendar date, and this is what the graph looked like. I think it's like 70% of the UCL injuries surgeries occurred in the first half of the season, and the second half of the season, but less than 30%. The point I was trying to make is that at the beginning of the season, players are rested. They haven't been doing much throwing. They're babied, so on and so forth. So all of this, don't pitch too much, rest, number of pitches. It doesn't jive with what actually has been happening, and I think more and more people are coming to that conclusion. And again, Nolan Ryan, we baby pitchers. You've got 3 players who had Tommy John surgery, and I've put in their pictures Harvey, Strasburg, and Wainwright, and said, okay, baby, too much babying. I'm going to click through. The point of this presentation was, and why I'm presenting it today, is because I want to get to and I'm going to hopefully put the final nail in the coffin here, at least from my talking about it. What the inverted W and trying to put the rest final fallacies. Some of you probably saw my tweet about Lindsay Barra. She may be a very nice person. She appears to be. But what got her off on the wrong foot was when she did an article on Strasburg's injury back in 2012 for ESPN News, I think it was. And immediately she referenced, I believe, Chris O'Leary's research, high elbow, inverted W, caused injury, so on and so forth. And she's no different than Verducci. Verducci did an article, the same thing, and I think there were at least 3 or 4 others. And my point being is, if you're going to have credibility as a journalist, do some research. Try to cover the period. I'll give Jeff Passan great credit for his book, The Arm, because he actually reached out to me and interviewed me for the book, and we talked about several things, not the least of which was inverted W. Lindsay, never heard, and nobody other than Passan, nobody has ever called me and asked me about the inverted W, and I'm the one who came up with the term and the concept. Anyway, the what I wanted to do is, this graph's an important graph, UCL stress, because it comes right out of Fleisig's research. One thing I'll give credit to Fleisig for, he does some good research from a standpoint of dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Most of his stuff I consider is done very well in terms of the research itself. I question, I question where he's trying to go with it. You can't, meaning you take a bunch of high school pitchers and then try to extrapolate it to a major league pitcher. It just doesn't jive to me, or it doesn't work. Anyway, here's what I'm trying to get to. There's two graphs here. This first graph shows flexion torque, and I'm not so much interested. That's flexion. This one is the one I'm more interested in. This is varus torque. Varus is the reaction to valgus. Valgus is what they believe is the problem when you throw the baseball. Valgus stress on the UCL and rupturing of the UCL because of excessive valgus stress. This is basically is time in this axis, and this is level Newton meters on this axis. And the time axis starts with foot contact, FC. This line represents maximum external rotation of the shoulder, and you can look at these. You can see the pictures up here. So this is the foot contact right here. This is maximum external rotation here. This is release of the baseball here, and this is maximum internal rotation. You basically pronation as the arm recoils from throwing, it will pronate. From the graph, what it shows is that just before, at least from this study that Fleisig did, just before maximum external rotation is where he, from inverse dynamics, basically taking a bunch of cameras and filming at high speeds and then going back with some special software to extrapolate motion into force based upon inertia and so on and so forth. That maximum varus torque, which is the reaction to valgus torque, which is what is considered to be damaging to the UCL, occurred just before maximum external rotation. Now, some authors believe it occurs at maximum external rotation. I took Fleisig's information because he was one of the only ones that I could find that had a graph showing the time dependence of valgus varus torque with respect to the throwing motion. So if I go to the next page, what I've done here, and this is what I've been trying to get to, just to let you know, this is the important. If you ignore everything else, but this is what I was trying to get to. What I've shown here is that graph that you saw on the previous page, just this portion of the varus torque, which is what is considered to be damaging to the UCL. And I have taken a pitching motion and synchronized the pitching motion, the time aspect of the pitching motion, foot contact, maximum external rotation, release, and maximum internal rotation, to the actual pitching motion itself, so you can see where these forces, where the varus torque is as a function of the pitching motion itself. Now I'll let this run through once, and you watch what happens. You're going to see dots. The dots represent the stop. Right foot contact, boom, that's where it hit, and it's pretty fast here. I did this kind of at the last minute, and I didn't really do that a great job of it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop this, go back to the beginning, and we'll start it and see if I can pause it at the right places. So we're going to go foot contact first. Almost, but not quite. Right there. So at foot contact, this is what the varus torque is on the elbow, elbow, forearm, elbow. It's this dot right here. And then if we go, at this point, based upon Fleisig's information, this would represent the point of maximum varus torque in the delivery. Can you see the arm? It's not quite to maximum external rotation, but the maximum varus torque, i.e. the response to valgus torque, is occurring at this point. Here we go, one more. At maximum external rotation, the varus torque has decreased somewhat to this point. This is maximum external rotation. And then we go to slightly after release is this point right here on the graph. So we get a little bit of a bump up again. And then we go to, oops, no, we don't go to. Yes, we do. There we go. So run that one more time. So we go bottom, foot contact, maximum varus torque, maximum external rotation, and oops, we want to try it one more time. And this is just before release and just after release. and then maximum internal rotation. Okay, so this is an important graph because what it says is nothing is happening until here. So all of this high elbow stuff that Chris O'Leary and anyone else who thinks they know something doesn't mean crap, because all the high elbow stuff has gone away by this point. And everybody, if you look at any pitcher who goes to high cock, whatever they do, they all are pretty much at this point in the delivery with their arm. They have to be in order to throw the baseball at least to the point where they can make it to the major leagues. So high elbow, inverted W, high elbow, Mark Pryor, whoever he wants to take, for I forget, he's pulled out someone, doesn't mean a thing. There's nothing in research that proves, hints, says that the high elbow is a problem. And again, if they took the time to actually go through the pitching sequence and plot the actual delivery to the actual forces that are happening, you would see this. As an aside, I actually had put into the presentation, this is Lindsay's article, actually one of the articles. This is a second article she did where she had Paul Reddick, who had done some work for Tom House writing his manuals, who now is another person who claims he knows something about baseball. He compared Greg Maddux to Strasburg and said because Maddux keeps his head going straight and Strasburg doesn't. So again, I get crazy about this stuff after a while. One last thing that I included in this, I call it this pitch, and it was the pitch that Strasburg appears to have blown his elbow out when he had when he had to have Tommy John surgery. And I'll play this.
Now take a look at it. Now this is the changeup that he's throwing there, and you can see right away he kind of where he felt something there. Then he's saying, "Hey, maybe I'm okay."
The point being that Strasburg appeared to have no problems. Prior to that, he was throwing a number of fastballs, seemed no indication, throwing almost 198, 99, 97 miles an hour, and no indication of any discomfort. And on that one pitch, it appears he blew his elbow out. And that was really the point I was trying to make, is that yes, I believe that some of the UCL injuries are caused by repetitive, but I also believe, and I presented a motor learning and how the body controls itself, that I also believe a number of UCL injuries are caused simply by one pitch, and it has to do with how the forearm muscles, pronator muscles, help protect the elbow by creating the varus torque that counters the valgus torque. But again, that's a story for another day. Thank you.